Six Nations is back and we've plenty of exciting rugby to look forward to. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. So after the Rugby World Cup, I think especially here in the Northern Hemisphere, there was a bit of kind of a hangover, rugby hangover, you know, with kind of all the excitement of the Rugby World Cup, and then it's over, and then people are kind of over rugby as well for a while. It felt like, you know, the URC actually started while Rugby World Cup was going on, but there didn't seem to be that much interest in it, even though it was probably the most competitive and exciting start to the URC season that we've had in a long time as well. A lot of teams kind of upsetting the apple cart and stuff like that, but, you know, interest in rugby kind of steadily building through the weeks, and then we got to Champions Cup, and then you could see that, you know, people beginning to get a little more interest as well. Some embers kind of, you know, igniting there as well in terms of the passion for rugby. And now that we're, you know, at basically the cusp of the Six Nations starting again, I think you can see that that passion really is in there. You know, the flames are beginning to lick up again. And I think by the end of this tournament, you know, people will be really properly back into rugby again. I think that's what this tournament does, not just for diehard rugby fans, but for kind of the casual rugby fan as well. It's always exciting. And, you know, that last weekend as well, there's always lots to play for too. So I expect this year to be no different, and because of the way things went in the Rugby World Cup as well, I think a lot of teams, at least, you know, now before the tournament starts and in the first week or so, will believe that they have a chance. You know, even if they lose their first game, they're going to feel like, okay, well, if we put in a performance and then we can get a run of wins going, we're in there with a shot. So because of that, I think it will build the interest very nicely through the tournament. What we're going to do today is we're just going to talk kind of high level about, you know, the tournament. Normally I do a big deep dive on stuff, and I had something like, I had a couple of things planned for here on the week. I wanted to have a guest on to chat about stuff, but, you know, schedules didn't kind of work out in that way, and then my work schedule meant that I couldn't do my big deep dive that I would like to do. So this is just going to be high level. And we're going to talk about each of the teams. We're going to do them in reverse order in terms of where they finished last year. We're going to talk about you know, where they finished last year, their fixtures for this year, their odds for this year, and some kind of high level stuff as well around, you know, what to look out for in terms of them and how I think those teams are actually going to get on in the tournament. So we're going to start with the team that finished 6th last year, and that's Italy. So just let me mute my phone, because of course my phone decided that it was going to interrupt me right at the start. Go on, go away. There we go. Okay, it's done. Right. So Italy finished 6th last year. Last title, they haven't won this tournament, although I do believe they will in the future. How far in the future, I can't tell you, but you can see from the performances of their under-21 squads that it's coming, and it's going to be in my lifetime, as long as I live that long. But yeah, I think generally in my lifetime, Italy definitely will win this tournament, and maybe not just once. Coaches, Gonzalo Caseda, so new coach in there, and they really need it after the Rugby World Cup. Fixtures then, they've got England at home. So, you know, I would have said last year would have been a good fixture for them, but England have a nice bounce from the Rugby World Cup, so it could be a tough opener for them, especially England bringing in some new talent as well that'll want to shine there. So Italy, they really need to keep that game tight. Then, you know, it gets tougher again. They go away to Ireland and away to France. You don't, like at the moment at least, top two teams from last year going away to them, having faced Italy or England at home, and maybe, you know, England have that ability to run up a big score against Italy away from home. So it could be a really tough start for them. Then they have Scotland at home and then Wales away. So You know, to have maybe their more winnable fixtures towards the end, although Scotland are a tough team and Wales away from home is not an easy one either. Odds for them 150 to 1, not surprising. So the main things is, like, they're coming off the back of an absolutely terrible Rugby World Cup. Nobody expected them to get out of their pool because they had France and New Zealand in there, but people did expect them to at least make those two work for the wins against them. They didn't do that. They struggled against some of the minnows as well. And, you know, coming out at, like, they would have gone into the Rugby World Cup, you know, I think with kind of a sense of, you know, this is now a new generation of players going into the Rugby World Cup, and they have a chance to kind of put down a marker and, you know, set a benchmark for future Rugby World Cup performances. And that just went out the window because they were so abjectly terrible in, you know, especially that game against the All Blacks. Like, there was just no fight in them at all, and that was very disappointing to see. But now they've got a new coach. Everybody gets a bounce when the new coach comes in. You know, some players will get chances that were kind of, you know, weren't getting those chances under the previous coach as well. So you'll have a new dynamic in the squad, everybody kind of fighting for the place, and people feeling like, you know, there are spots to be won there if you can perform well, and that always kind of feeds through then to the performance on the field as well. I would have said on the back of last year's Six Nations that, you know, their aim this year would be to, you know, try to get at least one win. And, you know, it'd be great to see them actually winning 2 games and kind of disrupting kind of that middle pack there and getting themselves in there. But after that Rugby World Cup, honestly, I think just putting in decent performances, and even if they lose all their games, making teams, you know, work for the wins is the important thing. Don't get, like, absolutely destroyed in every game is what they have to look at. Now, you know, we see in this tournament a lot, like, it throws up a lot of surprises. So, you know, and with the new coach there, you don't know how they're going to play and how, you know, how their confidence is going to be when they get to those later games, or, you know, whether they're even going to cause an upset early on either. You know, so that for me, they're a bit of an enigma with this new coach and coming off the back of that performance there. But I think, you know, they're probably going to be battling for the wooden spoon. I don't think, you know, that's putting my neck out too much saying that. But what I want to see from them is those performances and that heart and kind of just a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, really, to show that this new era, you know, there is going to be progress made in it, and it's not going to be a case of, you know, making a little bit of progress and then going backwards. And, you know, by the end of Casade's tenure, I want to feel like Italy are, you know, a better rugby nation and more competitive, and I think that is going to happen. But we're right at the start of that journey now, and I'm not expecting huge things from them this year. Next, then we go to 5th place last year. That was Wales. So Wales last won the title in 2021, and that was kind of a similar year to this, where there was no, you know, one team that you thought that was kind of going to be completely dominant in the tournament, given like the circumstances that were happening. So there's obviously an opportunity there for Wales to repeat that. And, you know, they got Warren Gatlin now back at the helm for them. And the fixtures got Scotland at home, which, you know, those two teams, you know, wherever it is, they seem to always be close in their games, no matter who's kind of on the up generally, you know. And then you got England away, Ireland away, and then France at home, and then they finish with Italy at home. So at least if they can get some decent results in the first 2 games, then, you know, they have a massive game then against France, and then they have, you know, a great chance then, if they're in a position, you know, to challenge for the title at home against Italy. You know, they really would feel the confidence. It's about that. It's about building it through the tournament. I feel that this Welsh squad that, you know, compared to some of the other squads, is pretty average, but there is some really good young talent in that squad, and there's some good young talent, I think, to come into that squad in the next couple of years as well. I've seen, like in the URC, a lot of decent young players getting game time at the start of this year, and I expect them in the next kind of 2, 3, 4 years to be coming into that Wales team, and then I expect Wales' fortunes to turn around. This year, like, their odds are 25-1, and I don't think that they're going to turn things around too much this year. I think a decent position for them would be somewhere, you know, in the middle of the pack. 3rd or 4th place would be a really good performance for them. Obviously, they do have a chance. I said, you know, there's no real, for me at least, massive favourite this year. So there's always that chance of get a couple of wins early on, and you absolutely have a shout to win the title. And I think, you know, under Gatland, you can never discount them. But looking at, you know, the Rugby World Cup was a bit mixed. You know, quarterfinal, not bad for the form they were in going in. They were in absolutely dire form going in. But, you know, they had still some decent performances, some, you know, a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, I think, for them. But some poor performances as well. And it's that inconsistency that, you know, through a tournament like this, you've got to be getting better every week. You can't be, you know, having one good performance and a bad performance, because that's where you end up in that kind of 4th, 5th place, kind of where they've been a lot of the time as well. So we'll have to see how they go from there. But again, that Gatland factor, I think, is going to really make it difficult for, you know, kind of predicting them. Especially early on. Everybody feels like they have a chance early on, so we'll have to see from there. Next then we have the 4th place team from last year, so that is England. So last title for them was 2020. Coach is Steve Borthwick, and their fixtures, they got Italy away, Wales at home, Scotland away, Ireland home, and France away. So for them, in terms of, you know, the difficulty of the teams that they're facing, it's almost perfectly set up for them for a tilt to the title. You know, go away to Italy, some really good young talent coming through in their squad, and looking at that, you think, okay, they have a chance to win well over there. If they do that, and then at home against Wales, then if they can get a win there, you know, once you're 2 wins out of 2 in this competition, you really do. That's when I think the belief really kicks in, you know. And then going up to Murrayfield and looking for a bit of revenge against Scotland, if you can pull that off, then home against Ireland, and then maybe a massive game against France away to finish off. I can honestly see England having a tilt at the title this year because of that, because of the way their fixtures fall, and the bookies obviously feel the same as well, because they're 13-2 with the bookies. You know, in terms of just the team coming in here, then they're obviously coming off the back of a great Rugby World Cup after being, again, kind of like Wales, where they're in absolutely dire form going into the competition, but England improved throughout the competition, and you could see, you know, belief coming back into that squad. And when you know, England do believe they really can stand toe to toe with the big boys in this competition, the likes of Ireland or France, and, you know, England generally historically would be one of the big boys in the competition. Kind of a little bit away from that in the last couple of years, but they're never that far away, you know, because England have that massive pool of players, and it's just about sorting through them and finding the ones that really will shine at test level. And, you know, if they can do that this year, you can't really count them out of a tilt at that title. No Owen Farrell this year. You know, he gets a lot of stick. Some people will be delighted that he's gone. For me, like, the reasons that not just that he's gone, but the reason that he's gone as well, I'm really disappointed. Like, that, you know, he felt he was just getting so much stick that he had to take a break from international rugby for his and his family's mental health. And, like, the people who, you know, are making those comments online and stuff like that should just be completely ashamed of themselves, because, you know, the guy's, at the end of the day, the guy's just a rugby player, and, you know, whether you like his personality or his tackling technique or wherever and blah blah blah, listen, you can criticize him as a player, but, you know, having digs at him and, like, threats and things like this, just not on. You know, for me, I respect him as a rugby player, and I think he doesn't get some of the credit that he deserves. You know, he's the amount of points the guy scored, you know, and the trophies he's won and stuff like that. You know, he really should be getting more respect than he does get. But you know, kind of sad to see that. You got George there, Jamie George, standing in as captain for them. There are plenty of new players coming into the squad, and it's one of these ones where, you know, with England and the Premiership, players can look absolutely amazing at Premiership level, and then you put them in a Test jersey and they get found out and they're just absolutely, you know, dire. But then the thing is that, you know, it's not just like if it's another nation, then you just think, okay, that guy had his chance, we'll put the guy that was there before back in, because we don't have that many players running around. But England have so many, there's always calls for, like, that guy was terrible, well then this guy should get a go, and if he got a go, then this other guy and this other guy, this other guy, and you've got like 10 players, you know, that everybody thinks is, you know, or sorry, not that everybody thinks, but, you know, between everybody, like, people are saying this guy's the best, or that guy's the best, or that guy's the best, and they all have to be kind of, you know, given their chance to find out who actually can do it at Test level. So if Borthwick can find those players quickly this year, and, you know, with the fixtures that they have, Italy and Wales first up, that's a possibility of that happening, that he can kind of sort through and still get results. Then they really do have a chance, I feel, at the title this year. Next, then, we're going to move on to Scotland. So Scotland finished third last year. Last title was 1999. So the last Five Nations, Scotland haven't won in the Six Nations era, but you feel like the talent is there definitely for them to win this tournament. Coach is Gregor Townsend. He's been there a while now. It's kind of feeling like, you know, it's getting to the point where he needs to deliver, though. Fixtures this year: Wales away, France at home, England home, Italy away, and then Ireland away. So, you know, for them, it really is about that start against Wales. If they can win that, then they've got two massive tests at home against France and England. And, you know, same thing again. Get that momentum, get a couple of wins under your belt, and you're absolutely in with a chance at the title. And then you would expect, if they'd won two out of three or 3 out of 3 going into that Italy game, you'd expect they're going to win that, and then they go into the final round then against, you know, away to Ireland, looking possibly to win the championship. And that's really where these guys want to be. Their odds are 12-1 for the tournament. So, but some big talking points, I think, for them. First of all, disappointing Rugby World Cup. Out in the pool stages. Now, looking at that pool, it really was a pool of death. That, looking at the world rankings going in, you would expect that, you know, or you'd expect that Ireland and South Africa were going to go through, and Scotland were going to go home. So, not disappointing in that perspective, I think, but the fact that within the squad they really believed that they could do it, that they could perform, and then in those big games the performance wasn't there. And I think that's where the disappointment is. It's not a case of that they didn't beat Ireland or they didn't beat South Africa. It's that they didn't give themselves any chance at all of beating them. Like Ireland had, you know, Ireland looked very comfortable against them, and you know, I think that's something that's going to sting them. And I think that game then in Dublin, the final game, I think that's the big one that Scotland are preparing for, in terms of just getting things right from the Rugby World Cup, that they'll want to show, you know, that they're better than that performance from the Rugby World Cup. And I think it's going to be a really difficult game for Ireland because of that. No matter what the situation is, whether, you know, possibly these two teams could be still in with a shout for the title, possibly they're kind of fighting over, kind of finishing somewhere between 3rd and 5th in the tournament. But whatever it is, I think that because of that game is going to be a real scrap. They've got co-captains this year as well. So no Jamie Ritchie is captain this year. It's Rory Darge and Finn Russell. very interested to see how that works, you know, with the referees and stuff, and whether they're happy to kind of talk to both of them. And I want to see how well Russell goes as well as captain, and Darge as well. Darge is kind of young player. So it's going to be interesting to see who kind of takes more of the initiative in terms of talking to the referee about stuff. Is Darge just going to deal with the forward stuff and Russell kind of everything else, including the backs, or what way he's going to work? So we'll have to see. And then Townsend, you know, I think this is a massive, for Gregor Townsend, this is a massive year for him in terms of the Six Nations, because, you know, there's a possibility there with their fixtures, you know, of putting themselves in with a chance of a tilt to the title. But I think if they finish in that bottom half, like 4th down to 6th, he could be under real pressure for his job as well, because we've seen it kind of, you know, ebb and flow with Scotland, where Townsend is kind of, you know, he never seems very secure in his position there. There's always like waiting for the next crisis for people to chip in and start criticizing and stuff like that. And because of that, like, I feel like that it won't take that much of a disappointing tournament for, you know, that kind of to snowball and then people to call for him to go. But if he can deliver a title, then hopefully he can then finally shut up all of his critics, because I think he's a decent coach. And it's about whether it's, but for these guys, not just for him, for his players as well, and his new captains too, it's about delivering, you know, not just delivering in Calcutta Cup matches, which they've done brilliantly in the last few years. It's about delivering on those really big occasions where they're not just spoiling the party for someone else, but they're actually, you know, claiming a title, or at least putting themselves in a position where then whoever is going up against them then has to win their game to win the title. So we'll have to see how that actually works out for them. Next then we move on to France. So the Rugby World Cup hosts, second last year. Last title was 2022, where they just looked absolutely unstoppable. Coaches Fabien Galtier. The fixtures: Ireland at home, massive game first up for them. Scotland away, Italy at home, Wales away, and England at home then. Their odds 11 to 10. Looking at those fixtures, Ireland up first at home. You know, it's always difficult for Ireland to go away to France and win. And I know it's going to be in Marseille, it's not going to be in Paris, but I think that actually makes it more difficult for Ireland, honestly, to go there, because I think you're going to see more kind of passionate fans from the French side taking it down, you know, to the south, compared to what you see in Paris. And it means as well that, you know, the fans are going to be kind of closer to the pitch too. And I think that atmosphere might, you know, might get a little bit to the Irish players if things aren't going their way at certain points in the game as well. So I think that's going to be an edge for France in that one. If they win that one, then go away to Scotland. It's always a ding-dong battle between those two. So if they come through that, then they've got kind of I won't say it's, you know, it's a little bit disrespectful to say comfortable, but the next two games are certainly more comfortable, should I say. So Italy at home, and then Wales away. Wales away, you know, they would expect to have kind of a tough game, but come through it. And Italy at home, Italy did really push them last year, but I think this year France probably will be ready for that, especially after the Rugby World Cup. You might see kind of Italy being in there, kind of almost like an old Italy type of thing, where they're in the game for like 60 minutes and then France pull away, and then that massive game at the end against England. And you know, it's no accident that France and England is like the on the final weekend, because I feel like the tournament organisers feel like that's probably going to be the decider for the tournament, and it's hard to kind of argue against it given like other teams' fixtures and stuff like that. It doesn't always go to script like that, but it feels like that's what they're building to. So in terms of France for this one, then no Dupont, because he's following his Olympic dream, and like that, what can't that guy do? So wouldn't be surprised if he gets an Olympic medal out of this. No Entomac either there, so that kind of, you know, duo that has been like, you know, driving the team on for so long. Both there, obviously, Entomac wasn't there in the Rugby World Cup either. Then you got Lusu and Lagaric, both there for, you know, possibly there, well, battling for the 9 position. So Lagaric yet to make his debut, I think. So he's going to be one to watch. He's looked really good when I've seen him in European rugby competitions. There's lots of young talent coming through as well, not just in the squad, but below this squad as well. And because of that, you know, it feels like, you know, France are going to be reinvigorated, I think, after that disappointment of the home Rugby World Cup. They really did feel like that it was almost destiny for them to reach a final and maybe lift the trophy at home with such a talented squad. And then, you know, that heartache of going out in the quarterfinals the way they did, just, you know, so like it really did kind of suck the life out of them, I think. And if now they've got to bounce back. Like the top 14 has been buzzing. Their top teams have been really well in Europe. We've got Bordeaux that just smashed their way through their group, and a lot of the backs are, you know, in this France team are actually in that team as well. So a lot of these players are on a real high coming into this. And, you know, we saw some really good talent coming through last year, the likes of Dumortier on the wing. Then we saw BRE just lighting up the Rugby World Cup. He's making his Six Nations debut this year as well. And with all that talent coming through, you just feel like maybe that's going to be the thing that drives them on to lift like their second Six Nations in 3 seasons. So for me, France definitely the favourites, and it's to other teams to kind of knock them off that perch. On to then my own team, Ireland. So last year first won the Grand Slam. You know, so last title obviously was last year as well. Coaches Andy Farrell. You know, we've seen now. You know, he took over a Rugby World Cup cycle and really built the team up, has achieved some amazing things with the team, but now we have to see, can he now kind of go again after the disappointment of the Rugby World Cup? Can he lift the team again? And then he's, you know, been announced as the Lions coach and etc. So, you know, it's about whether he can now drive this Ireland team on to improve, not just to maintain their levels, but to get better, because other teams are going to get better, and staying at the level that we were even, you know, last year is not going to be good enough, I feel. Fixtures for Ireland: France away, Italy home, Wales home, England away, Scotland home. So it's kind of the tough year for Ireland, you know, with France and England both away from home. Odds 17-10 for them. So for me, it's all about that first up game against France. Can they go to France and win? I think going down to Marseille and getting a win down there would be absolutely epic for this team, and it would be just one of those games that will live long in the memory, no matter what the performance was or how we got there. It was a scrappy drop goal, or, you know, whether we actually won well, which we don't tend to do in France. It's always kind of a nail biter if Ireland do go on to win. You know, it's still going to be a classic, but gotta feel like the France are absolutely the favourites for that, and Ireland really will need to kind of, you know, hit the ground running, and that can be hard, I think, for Ireland, because we generally start the tournament slow and build our way in. So possibly, you know, looking like coming off a defeat into that home game against Italy, where, you know, we probably, if Ireland do lose, you're going to see some changes. You're going to see some, I was going to say new faces. I think you're probably going to see some old faces, because if Ireland lose against France and they make changes against Italy, you're probably going to see the likes of Jacob Stockdale, etc., coming back into the matchday squad, maybe even the likes of Conor Murray coming in there too, and getting a run out, because they're all in the squad, and I feel like they're going to play against Italy anyway. But it could be one of those ones where it's, rather than new faces coming in, it's actually old faces coming in and getting the chance. Then Wales at home after that. So you would hope, at least as an Ireland fan, that after the first 3 games that you got 2 wins. But again, if we kind of lose against France, struggle against Italy, and Wales are coming in with a bit of confidence, then that game becomes immensely tougher for us. And I've been in the Aviva and the old Lansdowne Road, where Welsh teams who weren't that fancied came. Like I was there the year where real optimism around Irish rugby, and Wales were our first game in the tournament, and they just came and they spanked us that day. Like they were just so much smarter than us, and that's always a possibility, especially with Gatlin at the helm there as well. From that, then over to Twickenham to take on England. Ireland always up for the trip over there, but again, it's about how are the teams at this point in the tournament in terms of confidence and in terms of their ability to challenge for the title as well. Going to be an epic game between them, because it always is. Like, it's always a cracker between Ireland and England. And then finally then home to Scotland. Scotland, they've been party poopers for Ireland on previous occasions, and possibility for them there as well. So looking at each of those there, maybe it's just because of the way Ireland went out of the Rugby World Cup, that they looks much more difficult than it did last year in terms of the of the fixtures and how they fall this year. For Ireland, I thought last year was really good in terms of just the order of the fixtures and who we play at home and who we play away is a massive thing for Ireland as well. I think this kind of the even years where we have France and England away always makes it just so much more difficult for us. But in terms of then the big notes to look out for Ireland, no Johnny Sexton this year. Massive boots to fill. Obviously we'd no Johnny Sexton last year either, but this is kind of different because it's no Johnny Sexton ever again, is the thing, right? Whereas last year was just a case of, well, Ross Byrne is just filling in until the Rugby World Cup kind of thing. Peter O'Mahony is the new captain. Absolutely delighted for him. He's been a brilliant servant for Ireland. I don't know what the hell Munster and RFU are actually doing about his contract, but that's like shooting yourself in the foot. It's just stupid. You know the guy's going to get announced as the captain. Well, if that's going to happen, then you sort out his contract before then, or you sort out his future, whatever is happening. You let him know what it is, so there's not playing on his mind. Like, you don't need your captain having crap like that to deal with during like a massive tournament like this. So, like, I talked about it before, like I have a lot of praise for the RFU in terms of like how they've kind of turned Irish rugby around in certain areas, but in other areas it really feels like parts of the organisation, and it's not just the Irish union either, it's all of the unions, I think, are stuck still in that amateur era, and it's about time really that the administration of the game became more professional, and that like stuff like this just isn't on really in a professional game. This should have been sorted out long before now. It should have been sorted out before Christmas, so that it's not something that we're talking about right now, but unfortunately we are. Then we got Jack Crowley in at 10. I think going into the Rugby World Cup and even through the Rugby World Cup, it felt like between himself and Ross Byrne, they were the two names there, and it was kind of neck and neck between them. But I had Ross Byrne slightly ahead. I think now Crowley is ahead simply because he's the one that's been getting the chances, whereas Ross Byrne's been out injured, and you've had his brother Harry and Kieran Frawley. They're at Leinster kind of sharing the duties at 10, and both of them are actually in the squad as well. So no Ross Byrne this year either. So it really is Crowley's chance to kind of make that shirt his own this year. Then another thing is, like, normally after the Rugby World Cup, especially for an Ireland squad, we see a lot of turnover, a lot of players, who've retired or who've been kind of put out to pasture in terms of at least their international career. But, for this side, not really so much. Obviously there's no Johnny Sexton there. But other than that, there isn't that much turnover, and the players who are missing are injured rather than kind of out of the squad permanently. So there are some new faces coming in. I think the most exciting of them for me is Calvin Nash. I really want to see him have a great tournament because he's been electric for Munster on the wing, and he really has improved as a player. I think he's a great option there with no Mac Hansen. So I want to see him, performing well first up against France, and actually getting that kind of run of games through the tournament. What I really hope we don't see is that it's possible, because you never know with kind of Six Nation debuts, that he could have a bit of a nightmare against France, and then we don't see him again for the rest of the tournament, and that would be a real pity. So we'll have to see how that goes for them. But in terms of how Ireland are going to do this year, it's really hard for me to say. I honestly don't think. I think there's a chance of a title, but I don't think it's. As I said, I think France are the favourites. I think England have a good shout at the title, and then you have kind of Scotland and Wales with outside chances. I think Ireland are somewhere in between those. You're looking at the squad, and at the recent performance, you say, well, Ireland should, and with the bookies as well, second favourites is where kind of Ireland should be. But because of the fixtures and stuff like that, it really is, it's all on that kind of France game first up. If we lose that, then it's a hell of a task then to get back and potentially win a title from there. Win the first game, and then all possibilities are open to you, right? And that's just the way this tournament is. But I think a lot of people are saying, for Ireland, we really should be finishing top 2. I think top 3 is going to be decent finish for us this year, just because of the fixtures and because of getting over the Rugby World Cup and betting in some players in key positions as well. Top 3 would be decent. Finishing outside of that, then we got to be thinking about, okay, the thoughts going to long term have to come in very quickly from there, because Andy Farrell is going to be leaving to be the or getting a sabbatical, as it were, to be the Lions coach. So his focus is going to be away from Ireland. And, once he comes back, there's not that long then until the next Rugby World Cup. And, so I think this year, where we finish, if we're finishing outside the top 3, then we've got to be thinking about getting players in and almost completely revamping the squad ahead of the next Rugby World Cup, and not leaving it too late to do that. So for Ireland, and I think for a lot of teams this year as well, it's it is the first Six Nations in the Rugby World Cup cycle, but it's going to set that kind of set the bar and set kind of the trends, and also kind of give you a big idea of how many of these players can go again in the next Rugby World Cup as well. But that is pretty much our preview. So I will be doing previews of each of the games and reviews as well. Some of the reviews, because of work and stuff, means it means that they might be kind of the day after or stuff like that, or maybe even like a Saturday review going up on a Monday if I can't get to the game in time. So we'll have to excuse me, lot to see from there. But that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed, and hope to see you on some of the other videos.